Welcome, champions of the rebellions and fans across the galaxy, to another episode of the Podcast of Champions. I'm your host, Lord Deathman, broadcasting from the heart of the Yavin base, figuratively, of course. Tonight, we're diving deep into the latest arc of Disney Plus's Andor, covering episodes 7, 8, and 9, titled Messenger. Who are you? And the line, respectively. But before we jump to hyperspace, a quick heads up. This episode contains major spoilers for Andor Season 2, episodes 7 through 9. If you haven't caught up, hit pause, haul jets, and return once you have completed your mission. Don't let us spoil the Death Star plans for you. And don't forget to join our message board at sakar.freeforums.net, your cantina for theories, debates, and the best Star Wars memes this side of the Outer Rim. We're also on YouTube and X. Search for Podcast of Champions and subscribe for exclusive content and more. May the algorithm be with you. Okay, so everyone knows who I am, Lord Deathman, but joining me tonight are three of the sharpest minds in the galaxy. We have Merv, our resident lore master and droid rights advocate. How are you doing today?
Fantastic.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it, my friend. We also have Taylor here today, who's never met a Star Wars theory he didn't like. How are you doing?
I'm good.
And last but certainly not least, we have Grandmaster, the Jedi of analysis, strong in the Force and even stronger with the hottest takes. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, sure.
Outstanding. All right, we've welcomed the panelists. Guys, are you ready to break down this incredible arc? Outstanding, outstanding. So let's go around the hollow table, shall we? Merv, we're going to start with you. What was your gut reaction to this arc, especially with the events on Gorman and the return to Yavin Base?
Uh, Gut reaction is oof. Pretty sure I said that
this,
throughout
this one
the
was a lot.
entirety.
This one
Yeah,
was a lot.
this one was
Yeah,
a lot. Episodes 4, 5, 6 kind of got us introduced to Gorman, and episodes 7, 8, 9 really kind of showed us what's probably going to be the end of Gorman. So that was a boiling of a few episodes there. It was quite a bit. It was quite a bit. It was all intense and interesting for me anyway.
yeah. Every missed opportunity that Cassian takes is so like you just feel it. You're like, is he gonna make that shot? We need him to do it. But
Yes.
yeah, I'm right there with you. Taylor, did the political intrigue and the depictions of the Gorman massacre change your perspective on the rebellion's origins? I know that's a tough one.
Um, I don't know if it changed my perspective on the origins of the rebellion. It's certainly, if anyone didn't understand why they were rebelling against these people, they should certainly understand. After that, it was extremely powerful, especially episode 8 with the massacre
Yeah.
itself. Yeah,
Yeah, when the Empire sets up that false flag by shooting the first trooper, there's a lot of real world parallels in there. I'm not going to take us into a political discussion, but yeah, just overall, how did you feel about this arc? Did you feel drained the way I did? Like this just took something out of you to watch all three of these.
yeah, these were three really great episodes, and a lot happened. Even in the shorter episodes, like I think episode 7 was one of the shortest ones, but there's still a tremendous lot happened. Of course, the lead up to the massacre, and then of course the aftermath of the massacre for both Mon Mothma
Yeah,
and Andor
yeah,
himself
incredible.
and Bix.
Indeed. Indeed. A lot to unpack here. And out in the live audience, as you can see, we're already off to a good start with this discussion. Grandmaster, that leaves you with the introduction of K2SO and all these shifting alliances. What stood out the most to you in terms of character development in this arc?
I think it's a choice mon Mothma made
Yeah.
to speak up loud and clear, and then suffer the consequences of that choice. But sometimes you need to do what needs to be done and pay the price. And she did in a beautiful way. But I will dive deeper into that later. Overall, these three episodes were amazing. It felt a little bit like Christmas morning, and the tree had all the presents underneath, and they were all mine. I got all I asked for, and it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. A devastating question gets asked by a certain our favorite assassin. Who are you? And those three words turn out to be three of the most devastating words in all of Star Wars history. I think so.
Mhm.
But anyway, yes, not to keep us from the deeper analysis, it is time to ignite those sabers and drill down a little bit deeper into these episodes. As before, Merv, I want to start with you. The depiction of Gorman, I think it drew from real world revolutions and history. How did that influence the emotional impact of these episodes for you?
I mean, quite a bit. It's such an effective technique, I think, to take stuff that is reminiscent of our own history as Earth. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be my history; it could be the world's history. And kind of adapt it and reflect it in fictional media. Like it's always going to land. Some more emotionally for some people than others, but it's always interesting to see like where the I guess inspirations for some of these things come from. It really takes you down a deep dive sometimes. Once you start saying, "Oh, well, wait, this is," this has happened. Stuff like
Yeah,
this has happened,
yeah,
and it's tragic. I mean, this were what we see in episode 9 here is really like the last straw of the silent rebellion, I guess,
right,
for a lot of reasons. But the lead up to that is just how much tragedy can we befall, before we get there. And it really takes something of this magnitude to really force the hands of the people who were silent before this, not silent, but they weren't,
right.
outspoken. But it takes a lot of guts to stand up to something that is as just controlling as the empire is. In the if we there, like you said, I don't really want to get into it, but there's a lot of historical context that you
Yeah,
can take this and transition it from or to, and easily see the parallels there. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weight to it, and especially just the obvious reflections of like French and Italian, I guess, culture in World War II to the Gorman culture in this, and then obviously the Nazis would be the parallel for the Empire. That's the easy surface one, but there's so many more that I've heard over the last like week that people have talked about. Um, these episodes were great. I do have a few minor criticisms, and they're
okay,
minor, but
okay.
this is the first time I think in this storytelling where we're jumping ahead a year at a time, where I felt like I missed some good stuff. Like the year jump between episodes 6 and 7. There were a few character changes that I almost would have liked to see a little bit more of, or at least the maybe some kind of a semblance. The big one was Cyril, and obviously I can fill in the gaps myself, but he seems to become far more sympathetic to the Gorman people. Makes sense because he's living there for a couple of years, and far more disillusioned with the Empire, which makes sense because they're obviously just feeding him just the little pieces of information he can or that he needs, and then moving on. and it would have just, I think it would have been interesting to see, because the last time we saw him, he was on good terms with the Gorman front and, secretly doing these things. And again, I can make up my own, stuff that happens, but it would have been, I think it might have been a little more satisfying if I saw just something obvious, like even in episode 6 or whatever, if it was going to go this route, to show me like the lead in there. Again, it's not a big deal, but there was a little bit that I wanted more out of that initial story there. Whenever we were
I can
getting caught up
understand
in
that.
episode 7.
I can understand that. And I think Cyril's journey really blurs the line between a villain and a victim. And I
Yeah,
think that he wasn't so much someone who was interested in fascism and authoritarianism for the sake of personal gain. He actually thought he was someone who was just invested in the rule of law. He wanted an orderly society, and he thought that the empire, that's what it stood for. But when he finally discovers the true dimensions of the horror and the spectacle that he's been involved in, we see him kind of unravel, going back into that crowd and kind of wandering aimlessly, and you're waiting for the elbow or the 2x4 or the blaster hit that's finally going to take this guy out. But he's completely invulnerable as he goes through this crowd, of course, until he sees his arch nemesis. How did that scene play out for you? Was that satisfying?
yes, I will say it was immensely satisfying. Just because, I mean, just alone, like I almost forget how little these two characters have interacted in the however many
Yeah.
episodes for this entire series, because they've been around, both of them, since the beginning, and obviously Cassian means so much to Cyril. It's like his white whale. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's like, he sees him, and he's been hunting. He feels like, in the back of his head, he's been hunting this guy for, years now. And Cass has no idea who this guy is. He doesn't remember him from anything. He's like, who are you? So
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to see that one-sided, hatred, honestly. But on top of that, I thought it was an awesome, like, hand-to-hand combat sequence. I thought it was great. It was like just
Yeah.
emotional and like brutal at the same
Very
time, and then
intense. Yeah.
yeah, it in some ways it reminded me of like the They Live fight scene, where it keeps going, and it's getting more and more like violent as it goes, and it was just fun to watch. And then whenever next thing you know, a grenade pops through the window, and the only thing that sucks is, like, he's not going to shoot him at the end, so that you almost can see that happening before it happens. Whenever he
Right.
finally does get shot, like, it's just kind of predictable. But I wouldn't want it any other way, necessarily. I thought it was a fitting end to just what winds up being such, like, kind of a tragic, sad, pathetic little character. You know what I mean?
Um, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Incredible work on both sides in terms of the performances there, the choreography.
Hmm.
We could go on about this forever, and
Yeah, really could.
yeah, it's just that good a show. And Merv, I want to thank you for all of your commentary. We will jump to Taylor. So, Taylor, a question for you, and really trying to piece all of the different things that have happened in this arc together. I'm thinking of Mon Mothma and her arc, this very dramatic turn from, being at the Senate on Coruscant to her extraction by Cassian. Um, how do you view her transformation and her portrayal of political resistance? She's now going to transition from someone who was in a very comfortable, affluent sort of space now to being on Yavin with the rebels, and probably not getting the types of meals that she's accustomed to, Taylor. How do you feel about that that character transition and her arc overall?
Yeah, well, of course we've been watching her arc through the whole 2 seasons of this show, and there's a ton to unpack there. But of course, this is where the breaking point, where she's given up on working from the inside and trying to influence, the Senate and the powers that be, the aristocracy of the empire. She's given up on that, and she's openly joining the rebellion. she gave her last speech and then escaped, knowing that she would have disappeared if she didn't run away after giving that particular speech. And I like that we had a lot of Senator Bail Organa in this, even though they had to
Yeah.
recast him with Benjamin Bratt, but he did a fine job. And I liked how he was, fully involved in the, trying to aid in the rebellion and trying to help Mon Mothma. But he's still going to be apparently on the inside, at least for a little while longer. I
Yeah.
mean, Mon Mothma. I mean, we've seen, we've just seen everything with her in this show, from her being a rich and powerful and influential and happy senator, and going through these life changes, being trying to work with I'm forgetting the guy's name, the antique dealer who's running the rebellion from from behind the
Luthen.
scenes there, Luthen, working with Luthen. But then, more things happening, her having to, make sacrifices, arrange a marriage for her daughter, see her friend get disappeared because he knew too much, you know, facing off with director Krennic and
Yeah.
seeing everything that's going on. And of course, again, the massacre on Gorman was just too much. That there's just no way for her to do this as an inside person anymore. So again, she had to openly join the
The
rebellion.
rebellion. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the whole Cyril story, of course, is amazing too. How we've watched that develop over two whole seasons. Now, I've seen some, getting to Merv's point about what happened in the interim. I've seen some people online saying that who are 100% convinced that Cyril had a affair with the Gorman girl that slapped him.
Right.
No evidence of that whatsoever. She slapped him because he kind of admitted at that point that he had been working with the Empire the whole time, and asked her to please give us one of these outside agitators so I can prevent this thing from blowing up. So that's why she slapped him,
Right.
because he's been working a double agent, for the
Yeah.
whole time. I didn't see any evidence that he's had a love affair with this woman, and I'm not sure she would have him anyway. And I don't think his relationship with Dedra had changed much, other than he was more and more uncomfortable with the what was going on in Gorman, and how he knew he wasn't getting all the information. I think he slowly was figuring that out. And of course, when he saw the things that were being done in the plaza there, he knew something was going to happen, and he heard the reports about the mining equipment and stuff showing up. He knew that he had been kept in completely in the dark, when here he thought he was more important than he actually was to the Empire. So that was really the point where his relationship with Dedra kind of fell apart. But it wasn't until episode 7 or 8 that happened.
Yeah.
And then the scene, of course, where he does attack Andor. Great scene. It was a great fight. It was a real visceral fight, like real people, in a brawl. How it happens, and his,
Yeah.
he Cyril, again, he's really a tragic character. He had nothing nothing left. His world had crumbled around him already. Like, he's lost his relationship, he's lost his empire, his position.
His personal
Um,
empire.
exactly, his personal empire, his position. Everything was gone. But then he, like Merv said, he saw the guy that in his mind at this vulnerable point he could blame for all of it, and that was Andor, the guy who got him kicked out of his comfortable cop position on some remote planet that he was on in the first season, and started his whole spiral to this
Right.
to this low point in his life. So he just that's all he could do, was just lash out in violence and try to kill Andor, and luckily he didn't succeed. So again, really a fascinating character. You could talk about this guy for I'm a lot of characters in this show you could talk about forever, because they
For
are so
hours.
layered,
Yeah.
and they are so layered, and they're so developed over time and by events. that we see that is really amazing.
Yeah. And I think that slap, as you pointed out, also came from a place that she was disgusted with the hubris, the sort of pridefulness that at the 11th hour, this guy was going to be able to somehow put an end to all of this with her just delivering an outside agitator. It's a
Right.
ridiculously, naive idea that inflates his importance in the universe. His egomania is just really out of control, and he doesn't even really realize it. And I think
Abs-
that was very well played in terms of the way it rolled out in the narrative. Yeah,
Now, one other thing we've seen in this show, and there's been indicators of it in previous Star Wars properties, um, um, including the holiday special, which people don't like to mention. But um, we did see here in this show, we saw in an earlier episode, Bix, when she was um, when she was on drugs in the safe house. We saw her watching television, and in these 3 episodes, we saw a lot of the media reporting, television media, televised reports from on the ground there at Gorman. And previously we saw that commercial about Gorman, that that you know that just that corporate commercial of how great Gorman is and what it does for the Empire, and come visit Gorman, like a tourist ad. Um, but I've seen some people online complaining, "Oh, there's no television in the Star Wars universe." Well, yeah, there is, and they never said there wasn't. And there's always been stuff similar, similar to television. Even like in episode 1, I mean, those guys that were broadcasting the pod racing maybe that was radio,
right.
but same thing. All right, it was mass media entertainment exists in this universe, and it plays a big
Yeah,
role in the propaganda, of course, in the Empire.
yeah. I mean, if you have propaganda, you need some medium to deliver it. So,
Exactly.
not sure
Yeah.
how that's a valid argument.
Yeah.
uh, But yeah, Taylor, thank you so much for that searching commentary on these episodes. I know we could sit here and talk, and I would love to keep you on because there is so much to talk about in these 3 episodes. But I do want to take to our final champion, the Grandmaster. Last but certainly not least, you've heard a lot about Cyril Karn here. You've heard a lot about Mon Mothma. We've talked about the political agitation as far as what was going on in Gorman, and as far as how it is a lot like real history here. There feels like there would almost be nothing to talk about, but I wanted to get your take on Mon Mothma, on Cyril, and on Bix, in terms of where we leave with these characters, and how you felt about their fate at this particular moment.
Mm. Cyril, I actually kind of pity the guy, um, because, yeah, he is just, like you said, somebody who wants to uphold law and order. Uh, Regimes change. He is an agent of the empire. Thinks he does good, but actually he just gets used all the time by everybody, by his mom, by his girlfriend, by his girlfriend's boss, by the people he's supposed to infiltrate, and he realizes. And that is what struck me the most in when he wanders through the crowd, in the kill zone. That is what's the plaza name? I don't know, but the plaza on Gorman. Um, he realizes he's actually just a pawn, and then he can just release that frustration when he sees his nemesis, like Taylor said, Andor, Cassian Andor, and then yeah, that was a powerful stuff. There was always in the back of my mind, I know Andor will win and will survive this because Rogue One. The show is called Andor, so
Indeed.
the stakes were not really there, but still they managed to make it exciting and great to watch. And if you were to do a rewatch, like from season 1 until episode 4, A New Hope, then like I intend to do, as I mentioned on the board, I think it's a very exciting moment in that storyline. But yeah, of course, Palmo Plaza. Yeah, thank you, Lord Edmund. Then yeah, Dedra. Dedra was his first victim when he lashed out. He grabbed her by the throat and then broke off the relationship, and he kind of broke Dedra as well. I mean, after she was cold as ice when she said proceed, and well, then the killing all started to happen. But at the end, she was. I think this particular event also broke her, whether that was Cyril
Yeah.
or the event itself. But she was not her cool, collected self at the end of that episode 8, and rightfully so, because what we saw was terrifying, and that's actually what I wanted last week, and I got it. I was really happy to see that. Although I would have liked to have seen more deaths. That would have been more impressive, but that's personal taste. Then you get the Cassian with the K2SO. We knew that was coming, because in Rogue One it's fairly established they have a relationship for quite some time already, and he hasn't shown up, so it needed to happen at this point in the story. Otherwise, it would have been making that relationship in Rogue One a little bit less important. So I expected it to happen. The moment I saw those droids sitting in that room where Cyril entered, I knew what was going to happen. That was quite predictable, but it was great how they did it. And Biggs, Biggs. Biggs sacrifices her relationship with Cassian for the good of the rebellion, because she needs to win this fight. I really hope they see each other before the events of Rogue One. In the next arc, I need to see that happening, so they have a proper goodbye. Because poor Biggs, she's been through enough. So that's how I look at it. And then Mon Mothma, that speech was freaking amazing, and I posted it on the board, and there's a lot you can take out of that speech, which would apply to history or current day events, but let's not go there. But like I said on the board, this whole arc was so relevant to everything that is happening in the world and has happened in the world. I think Star Wars was never more relevant than this week, and that is a feat that is amazing. And to think that this was recorded, of course, a long time ago, when they were shooting this. So it's a great coincidence, but a great coincidence, if you know what I mean. So all that together, I think Andor, episode 7, 8, 9 of season 2, I think it's the best they've done in the series. And, well, you can't get higher praise than that, because the series was already, for me, the best ever in Star Wars. Well, they cemented that place forever, no doubt. And my love and my respect for this project is immense.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and thank you for those notes. I did want to save some commentary for myself with regards to the character of Deidre Miro, who, in this particular arc, I found her character to fall to really new heights of depravity. And without sort of getting into any kind of politicking here, she is she's played perfectly by Deborah Gaff as the type of fascist or authoritarian who cloaks their atrocities in ideology, the rule of law, all sorts of nice looking trappings, only for you to find out later on that it was just a robbery and she was only interested in her own advancement and what she could do for herself and those close to her. But I won't go on too much of a tear on that, but wonderfully played by that actress. And I really do hope she gets what's coming to her in that last arc because every time she kind of wandered away from that window, it was a mini heartbreak for me. But we'll see what happens in the final arc here. So, Grandmaster, thank you so much for all of that commentary. I wanted to take a moment in our discussion to kind of zoom out for a second, if the panel will indulge me, to the big picture of this show. We've been talking about this show since the first season. You know, I think we were early adopters. You didn't have many voices in the Star Wars fandom showing appreciation, and I'm glad that we sparked discussion. I'd like to think it was us who got everybody else kind of talking about it. But I wanted to take a moment here just to ask the panel the very same question and get all of your takes on it. Really, how do you see these episodes pushing the franchise forward? Does Andor elevate Star Wars for you into new territory, or is this just really a really good spy thriller with blasters? Do you see a path forward for content like this in Star Wars' future, or should we go in another direction? And I'll start with you, Murph. What do you think? What has Andor really brought to the table in terms of Star Wars for you?
I think it's absolutely elevated, like the writing, and just everything. I mean, this. I don't think this is only elevated Star Wars. I think this is elevated television as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
And it might be a shame that not as many people seem to be into it as we are, because it's really, like, I tell people all the time, like, this might be the best show I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
At the very least, it's up there. You know what I mean? It's at least in the conversation recently, and I mean, it's just so fun, and it transcends like the fringe. Star Wars. It's like, oh, well, I don't really like Star Wars. I don't think you have to like Star Wars to enjoy this show. I think this show transcends any hesitation people might have about enjoying. If you like good writing, if you like good television, I feel like you'd enjoy this show regardless of the skin that's on it.
Absolutely.
I think it's
Yeah,
great.
this could have been any other franchise, and this still would have been an extremely entertaining watch. But the fact that they managed to get this type of rich thematic material into a very popular franchise also makes it even more of an achievement than it already is. Thank you for that, Merv. I'm going to turn to Grandmaster now. What do you think Andor brings to the table for Star Wars? Would you like to see more content like this, or is this good for you as a one-off?
Hmm. Okay, I'm jealous. I'm a Trekkie, and this show is everything I want out of Star Trek, and it's placed in the wrong franchise. That being said, of course, that elevates Star Wars as a whole for me, and I applaud that. I welcome that, and it only enhances my love for this franchise, which I do have, despite me being more of a Trekkie. I wish that this kind of quality, this kind of writing, would take place in the franchise that I hold so dear to my heart, and it doesn't. So yeah, I'm jealous. This is amazing. It's great, and I love this show, and I want more of it, more, more, more. That being said, I don't know if I want any more expansions on this particular group of
This
characters.
particular story, yep.
Yeah, because well, it's hard to say something is perfect, but this is comes as close to perfect as is humanly possible. And any watering down of that story arc would can only hurt it. So leave these characters alone, finish the story on a high, and I'm sure they will because the quality has been good for now. What is it? 21 episodes. those final 3 episodes will be fine, but then don't touch this anymore. Leave it, let it be perfect. It's the same like I had with after Avengers Endgame, people started to say, "Oh, Robert Downey Jr. could come back as Tony Stark through the multiverse." I said, "Please do
Right.
not. Don't touch it. His arc was perfect." Unfortunately, Marvel Studios has returned to Robert Downey Jr., but that's another discussion. But
Another
sometimes,
discussion.
but sometimes you just need to leave stuff alone. It's perfect as it is. Just don't make sequels. Don't make prequels. Don't make sideshows or whatever, or expansions from one certain character. I don't need to see a Wilmon season 1, 2, 3, which will water this down. I don't need it. I don't need it. Just leave it be.
Indeed, indeed. Well said. I couldn't have said it any better myself. Last but certainly not least, Taylor, are you ready to raise a glass of blue milk to Tony Gilroy and company for the incredible work they've done on Andor? Would you like to see more, or do you think we should quietly end this perfect series on a high note?
Well, I agree with Grandmaster. I don't want to see more of these characters or any more building of this particular storyline. It's perfect, just like you said. It's perfect the way it is. However, I would like to see this level of storytelling applied to other stories in the Star Wars universe. And there's plenty of room in the Star Wars universe to tell other stories. And this series has elevated Star Wars. It doesn't mean that you can't still do some of this same stuff that we've loved in the past. You can still do some of that, but now you will have this other level, this other option of stories that are told, a bit more aimed at a bit more mature audience. Whereas, Star Wars has had stuff aimed at, the middle. They've also had stuff aimed at even younger audiences. They've had a lot of stuff aimed at even younger audiences. But this is obviously aimed at, a slightly more mature audience. And you can do all of that. I've been trying to think of an analogy, and the stuff I'm coming up with is like, you know, the Logan compared to the rest of the X-Men franchise. It's just a slightly higher level of storytelling and maturity was one I came up with. Another one I came up with is like the evolution from Batman '66 to the the Tim Burton Batman movies. Another another level, an expansion. That's the only two analogies I could think of, but to try to illustrate, what I'm talking about here is how this is just a different level, a different focus, a different tone that just brings a richness to this universe, um, in addition to what we've already had. And I think this show is slowly winning over a lot of people. I have seen some folks online, even some of the "I hate everything Star Wars" folks, have had to begrudgingly admit this is a good show, or "I'm surprised at how good this is." Blah blah blah. But I
Yeah.
think this show is gaining ground, even as it is winding down. I think it is gaining ground. I think I haven't seen all the numbers, but I think the audience has actually been growing for the show, and I hope it will continue to grow. And again, I hope that inspires the people in charge over there at Star Wars to continue to let Gilroy do more of this, and let their other creatives do more experiments. And more of this doesn't necessarily mean exactly like Andor, but do try some different stuff. Do
Right.
some different things. Experiment a little bit within the confines of the Star Wars universe. Uh, and yeah, Star Trek can really learn a lot from from this show. Uh, just going back to
Yeah.
last week's arc, that the thing that happened there during the heist where the blaster went off and killed somebody. Yeah, hey Star Trek, this is what happens when you don't follow orders. Okay? Someone tell the crews
Right.
of the various starships over there, bad things happen if you don't shut up and follow orders.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
Lastly, and this is a subject for a whole nother discussion, is but this show has made me think. I've always thought a little bit about it, but it's made me think even more about what is it that Palpatine really wants? What is it that he really cares about? Because I don't think he gives a fig about the Empire, quote unquote. I think his motives are much more religious, much more dark side, turning the whole galaxy to the dark side and chaos related. Because the Empire, they do a lot of stupid things. And I always thought, maybe it was this weak writing. Maybe it's just I don't think Palpatine gives a rat's ass about about his empire. Again, I think his thinking and his goals are much more spiritual, on a much more spiritual level, and much more connected to the Force than to the economy of the empire.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. It is it does give you pause and makes you question some of the motivations we thought. I mean, Darth Vader might have clearer motivations than the Empire in terms of securing his new empire.
Right.
I love the delivery from Hayden Christensen in Revenge of the Sith when he says that. Wonderful acting there. But yes, we could go on talking about Star Wars indefinitely, but we do have limited time here, and I want to thank Taylor for sounding off in terms of what Andor has managed to bring to the Star Wars universe. And it is time. It's the moment of truth. On a scale of 1 to 10, I have to ask each of my panelists to rate this latest arc. And I am going to start with Merv.
Just a couple quick thoughts.
Sure.
We didn't really touch on it all that much, but I found Cass's extraction of Mon Mothma about as intense as anything else in these
Yeah.
episodes. I thought it was fantastic. It was almost not quite a chase scene, but almost a chase scene. It was suspense the whole way through. Um, I think, unfortunately, I don't expect to see Bix and Cass reunite before the events of Rogue One. I feel like what we might get is maybe like a coda post Rogue One, where Bix goes to like whatever's left of Scarif or something and sheds a tear into the camera and whatever. That's what I'm expecting. I would be pleasantly surprised if it was differently. I would be very happy to see them just hug one last time. But and then K2, great. I loved seeing him back. And we whenever we had our what do we want answered by the time this season's over, K2 was on there,
Yeah.
and seeing the Empire be truly evil was on there. And I feel like we got both those things in this trilogy of episodes. So they must have been listening,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yes.
These episodes are. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it's just like Grandmaster said. It was Christmas. We opened
Yeah,
up the box and everything we'd asked for from Santa was there.
pretty much. Yeah. These episodes are a 10 out of 10. Even if I had some question marks and or wanted a little bit more out of some aspects, especially in like episode 7, episode 8 and 9 more than made up for anything I could have pinpointed wrong in anywhere. I mean, this show's just so great. 10 out of 10.
Outstanding. All right, we're off to a good start with grading. Grandmaster, the duty falls to you now. Any closing notes on this arc and your final grade?
No, I think we said everything we needed to say. 10, 10, 10. It's just that easy.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, Taylor. I don't know if you plan on breaking the streak here, but your closing notes and any and your final grades, please.
Um, First of all, I think it's amazing that Andor was on Gorman to assassinate Deidre. That's why he was there when it all broke loose. It was just the coincidence of the rioting and all happening, the massacre happening, while he was there to assassinate Deidre. And I just want to point out, like at the end, after the massacre, Deidre seemed pretty broken. I don't know if it was because of her relationship with Cyril or because she thought that maybe the Empire has gone too far at this point. She was feeling guilty. I mean, she's never given much indication of caring before, but a massacre like
Yeah.
that could push you over. But she did seem pretty darn distraught, and maybe she realized how much she's being used as well. Um, Grandmaster mentioned earlier the scene where she said, proceed. She didn't have any choice in that. Um, she was a figurehead. She was there so they could say that the administrator there on the planet gave the order to take action.
Right.
But they were going to do it whether she said proceed or not. All right, she knew it. I think at least that's the feeling I got from it. Grading. Wow. Well, this is Spinal Tap. Goes up to 11, but I'll keep it within the rules here and say that 10 out of 10 for these 3 episodes. Absolutely perfect.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Thank you so much, Taylor. In fact, thank you to the entire panel, to Merv, to Grandmaster, Taylor, for joining me here. Thanks for your insights. And I also want to thank our listeners for joining us on this journey through the galaxy. Remember to check out our message board at sakar.freeforms.net and to follow us on YouTube and X for more content. Here's a quick spoiler alert. Next up, we're going to be covering the Infinity Saga, the Star Trek TNG movies, and the moment it comes out, we're going to have our review for Fantastic Four First Steps. You won't want to miss any of it. As Mon Mothma said, rebellions are built on hope. Stay vigilant, keep questioning, and may the Force be with you always.